Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. On our last episode this past Tuesday, we talked about the man of 1,000 deaths himself, barely even a man at this point. He's so much more than that. Our Lucha Underground champion, Mil Muertes. And now today, we are here to talk about the biggest challenger that Mil faced throughout the entire season one of Lucha Underground. The first and possibly only man to beat Mil Muertes. I can't quite remember anyone else doing it. Maybe Drago had to win over him at one point, but still one of the only, if not the only men to actually beat Mil in the first season. And the man that Mil really just grew to hate throughout the season, Fenix, the man of 1,000 lives. And again, man is an incredibly loose term here because he's probably a lot more than that.
I'll tell you, with Fenix, you're talking about, in my estimation, one of the best luchadors that Lucha Underground has right now on their roster. This guy had such a phenomenal season one, really burst onto the scene, was part of that excellent program with Mil Muertes, and his stock just seems to be continuing to climb. I can't wait to talk about his second season, as I truly believe he's one of Lucha Underground's best. So, gonna be a good video today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's an incredible talent. And John, as far as his season one goes, he had a really, really successful season. He debuted in episode 3, I believe it was, in the triple threat between him, Drago, and Pentagon. He ended up winning that match and then went on to a singles match against Pentagon, which I believe he also won, didn't he?
I believe he did win that match, yes, because it took a while for Pentagon to get, the gears turning. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe Phoenix won that match.
Yeah, because Pentagon went through this whole thing where he just really just kind of wanted to be accepted by somebody.
Right, exactly.
So, um, so Phoenix debuted episode 3, had that awesome main event, and then episode 4 had his match with Pentagon, and Phoenix won that match with a top rope Spanish fly, which I personally think he probably should have kept it as his finisher, but the Samoan driver that he uses is still pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like the Samoan driver because it's more stationary. I think the super, like the Avalanche Spanish Fly, should be for like dire situations or really like those big money match situations. But
Right.
yeah, I agree. It's amazing that he can pull stuff like that off.
Yeah, and then Pentagon went on to try to attack Sexy Star to help Chavo Guerrero in their little feud. Phoenix came out to make the save there, which led to those two entities, Phoenix and Sexy Star, and then Chavo and Pentagon, matching up in a tag team match the following week. Phoenix had a singles match against Chavo Guerrero the following week, which he did, of course, win. And then in episode 8, we had the two big 10-man matches, and he was in the regular old 10-way match, not the Battle Royal, and he won it. And then he went on to face Mil Muertes, who won the 10-way Battle Royal and lost that, where the winner entered Aztec Warfare at number 20, and Phoenix, being the loser, entered Aztec Warfare at number 1. So then we get to Aztec Warfare. Phoenix enters at number 1, didn't win. I feel like he didn't really even last an exceptionally long time. I know he didn't even make the Final 4.
Yeah, wasn't he eliminated by Chavo when he was going on that rampage with the chair?
With the chair, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah, so it really didn't last too long.
Yep. So then in episode 10, we have Phoenix talking to Dario Cueto. Cueto tells Phoenix to beat Prince Puma and embarrass Conan. Phoenix claims that he fights for himself, but that Cueto reminds him that it's for the title. So, of course, Phoenix agrees. We get Puma versus Phoenix as our main event in episode 10, and it was a very good match, but it also had kind of a few moments where even though we watching rewatch, we knew Puma was retaining because we knew that Puma held the title up until Ultima Lucha, but there were still some moments in this match between Phoenix and Puma where even on the second or third viewing, I jumped thinking, oh my God, is Phoenix going to win the title, even though I knew he wasn't.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. Definitely a great back and forth matchup there.
Yeah, and that was the match where Cage came out and just destroyed Puma post-match. But then we get to episode 12, and this was the show that Phoenix beat Mil Muertes on.
Right, and this is what started that exceptional program, so yeah.
You know what? Screw it. Spoiler alert. This probably is going to end up being my feud of the year.
Yeah, you and me both. Definitely.
I don't want to.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't want to
funny
make
we
any
always go to this.
promises because whenever we do our end of the year awards, I always go back and look back and really try and make sure that I'm picking the best one and not just grabbing one that I remember most. But odds-on favorite to be my feud of the year right here: Fenix versus Mil Muertes. So then, as far as this actual match goes, there was a lot of emphasis from commentary on Fenix having a very never say die attitude and how he always comes back and you can't keep him down. And then on the following episode, we got a backstage segment where Katrina seeks out and then ends up making out with Fenix and tells him not to tell anybody because Mil would bury both of them if he found out.
Right.
So then on the following episode, we got Fenix versus Argenis and another kind of appearance here by Katrina where Fenix wins and then Katrina licks Argenis, trying to get Fenix to do the old lick of death ritual that she usually does with Mil. Fenix refused to do it though. Then on the following episode, we had one of those crazy matches where Katrina came out in the middle of a Mil Muertes match and he insisted on her doing the lick of death ritual and she refused. And right as he looked like he was about to give her a flatliner onto a chair, Fenix came out for the save. And then Fenix and Katrina made out right in front of Mil outside the ring.
Right.
So then on episode 17, we had another match between these guys, which Mil won.
Right. Mil getting his redemption there. So we see the scores kind of evened up a little bit between these two.
Exactly. And then on episode 18, we had another backstage segment involving Katrina, where she tells Fenix that Mil won't stop until he's taken all of Fenix's lives and that Fenix needs to bury Mil.
Yeah, here we see the groundwork being laid. Katrina kind of playing both sides for a far more malevolent purpose, which we will later see.
Well, and then, of course, in episode 19, the following episode, we had our Grave Consequences match, and it was exceptional.
I will never stop saying how amazing this match was. Like,
Yeah.
Just incredible, guys.
I think you say a lot that it's your match of the year. To me, I think a more kind of pronounced way of putting this match over is just to say that this is, in the history of wrestling, this is the greatest casket match of all time.
I completely agree. I think this match revolutionized the casket match, which is why I love it so much. Because
I think that if you ever are trying to just sell this match to someone and try and really get them interested in it, get them to watch it, I think that's the selling point. It isn't just this match was amazing because this feud was amazing and these guys are crazy personal as far as this feud goes. I think that really, if you want to sell somebody on this match and get them to watch it, you tell them immediately, right off the bat, I've seen every casket match the WWE has ever put on, and this is the best casket match of all time.
Yeah, without question.
So, and that's not even like a sales pitch where you're being sort of less than sincere. It's legitimate. I've never seen a better casket match than this.
Yeah, you and me both. I don't think it's hyperbole in the slightest. Yeah, I think it's completely on point.
So then we get to, well, obviously Fenix technically won this match. So he won the battle, but the war is still far from over. But then we get to episode 22, where we have the big trios tournament. Fenix, Drago, and Aerostar are on the same team, but they lose to Team Havoc, who would go on to become the eventual champions. So you could say that if it wasn't for Team Havoc, these guys might have ended up winning the whole thing. You never know, because they lost to the eventual champs.
That is true, yes.
All right, so then we had a Fenix versus Killshot match in episode 25, and then an amazing 7-way match for an Aztec medallion in episode 27 involving Fenix that also included Killshot, King Cuerno, Cage, Pentagon, Sexy Star, and the Mac. Fenix won. This was how he got his medallion originally. And then this was also an episode after Katrina revived Mil Muertes, and this is the one where she shows up in his locker room to tell him that he was nothing more than a pawn for death.
Right, and then of course we see the Disciples of Death, like that first little image of them like coming down, and then of course kind of phases out. So yeah, mind games are beginning here against Fenix.
Yep, Fenix realizes at this point that he won the battle, but not the war.
Exactly.
So then Fenix is kind of screwed because a couple episodes later he has to face Mil Muertes in a death match.
Oh man, this did not end well for Fenix in the slightest.
It's funny because, well, and funny really isn't an appropriate term to use in this case, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Um, Grave Consequences, I still think, was the best match that we saw between Mil and Fenix, but this match had a much more kind of jaw-dropping moment because with Grave Consequences, like, yeah, you have that awesome imagery where Mil rips Phoenix's mask halfway off, and then the great scene where Phoenix puts Mil, he does the double stomp to get Mil into the casket, and then Katrina licks the stone, throws it in there, and shuts the casket, and that's great. But in this match, if you have somebody literally getting dropped through the roof of a building,
Yeah. I think it told such a great story because in this time around, Phoenix wasn't even facing the same Mil Muertes, which was really the whole point to
right?
begin with.
Yeah,
And yeah, it really came through so well. And you're absolutely right, Ash. I mean, what other match in any other promotion are you going to hear? Oh, yeah. And the finish came, well, at least the setup for the finish came when one guy powerbombed another guy through a building. It's not
through
going to
the
happen.
roof of the building. Like,
Exactly.
you started on the roof of the building, and then you threw him through it, and he ended up on the floor of the building.
Yeah, miraculously he didn't die, and then you just drag the carcass out, and then you finish the
He might
job.
have died, but we would never know because he's got 1,000 lives.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure he did die, but he just rose back from the ashes because he is a phoenix.
Yeah, lucky for him, because anybody else, their season would have ended right there. Would have been
Their
like, well, it was a good run.
season, way to cut it short, John. Their lives would have ended.
Yeah, really.
You say season, I say careers, and then we take it up a notch and go all the way to live.
There you go, just up in that ante.
Yeah, but this was the last that we did see of Phoenix for a few episodes. Actually, he didn't show up again. This happened on episode 29, and we didn't actually see him again until episode 37 when we had our big Gift of the Gods ceremony uniting all of the medallions. We had 6, but then Phoenix, who had a medallion before getting killed, didn't show up because, he had just gotten killed.
For all the excuses you might hear, that is the most legitimate. So why were you late to work? I got powerbombed through a building. Oh, well, damn. I didn't really expect such honesty, and yeah, I
Don't let
guess
it
you're
happen
okay.
again, Parker.
Yeah, just don't let it happen again, damn it. But yeah, there you go. Oh my
best
god.
J.K. Simmons. I apologize.
It really was. No, that was great.
But so the thing is, though, when the little ceremony's over, Phoenix does end up showing up, which was one of the less well written segments of the season, because he shows up literally minutes after being able to show up and have his medallion count towards this ceremony. And because of the fact that he showed up just a few minutes late, he ends up getting put into a battle royal fighting for the medallion that he had already won, which he wins back, admittedly, but still, yeah, kind of awkward.
I just find it hilarious, right? That this is the same guy that delights in the idea of seeing his brother eat another man's face, but tardiness is just absolutely repugnant.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are still rules, John.
I love how he
No
has
murder doesn't have to be one of the rules. It's just that rules have to exist.
I just love this perverse code of conduct and etiquette. What the hell is this? But yeah, I mean, I will say this, dude. I think the perfect comparison to make to how I would have preferred this to kind of go down, when you look at Drago's re-entry into the temple, I thought that was so well done, and I would have liked to see Phoenix do something similar.
But I think the difference there is that Phoenix wasn't being punished. Like, Drago was being punished for losing a match that ended up having been one of Cueto's unique opportunities.
Right.
Whereas Phoenix was just dead.
Yeah, exactly. But I would like to have seen an episode with him in Quayle's office be like, hey, I got powerbombed through a building, but last I checked, I won one of those medallions and I won in on whatever you got going on for it because that should be mine in the first place. And just to kind of lay that foreground of, okay, you're back, but you do have to earn it again and just all that. So
yeah. I do agree that it could have been done better, but I think that the ends justify the means in this case.
Well, certainly, because I understand that they're on limited time. You got stories to build, and this
Yeah,
just seemed the quickest way to. And believe me, there are far worse ways to do stuff like this, and this
right.
wasn't even bad because the battle royal that would happen, I thought was very entertaining at least. So at least I had that going for it.
And I think that the way that they did it chronologically helped too, because if they would have done that, you would expect that the talking segment to establish the battle royal would have happened very early in the night. Then the battle royal would have happened, and then the unification ceremony would have happened. Whereas the
Right.
way that they did it, Phoenix winning the medallion back and putting the medallion into the Gift of the Gods title was kind of the closing moments of that episode, and it made for a really good high note to go out on.
Yeah, it's a great image seeing him, ascend the stairs, almost like ascending the temple, and
Right,
then
and then
just kind
hold
of
up
climbing
his
that
little
way.
hand signal that he does.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can understand they do it more for the moment, which I think does work out to their benefit.
Yeah. So then, of course, we do have the Gift of the Gods match, which he does win. So he becomes the first and only so far Gift of the Gods champion, which, just to clarify for those of you that are not 100% clear on these rules, the Gift of the Gods championship is kind of a mix between TNA's X Division championship and the WWE's Money in the Bank briefcase. It is a championship, which means that it can be defended. People can challenge for it, but it's also kind of a Money in the Bank briefcase in that you can cash in this championship for a shot at the Lucha Underground World Championship. So John and I kind of talked about this when we went through not only just the original run where we covered this episode, but also the Lucha rewatch where we covered the last 4 episodes, or the 4 hours I think it was. It's better because it makes it very clear that the number one prize in your company is the world title, and the Gift of the Gods championship is nothing more than a means to an end.
Yeah, and I think what I love about it, especially, I do love this whole idea of a week to promote the fight because
That's another one, is that if you do want to cash in, it's not like Money in the Bank where you can just, run out to the ring, hand the title to the ref, say I'm cashing in, and get a title shot instantly. You have to let Cueto know when you're cashing in so that he has at least 1 week to promote the match.
yeah, and I love that because I mean, you know me, Ashley. I have a lot of like old school tendencies about like my wrestling fan personality, and I like that because I think it maintains the integrity and the prestige of the championship. Because winning a world title, especially if it's your first world title, should never really be easy. And I do like Money in the Bank because sometimes it is like a good popping moment, like oh man, he's cashing in now and all that stuff. Like Seth's cash in, I thought was really well done. But still, I like that there's still that little bit of struggle. You still got to cross that final hurdle, albeit maybe you still have an edge though because you're doing it on your terms. So I think it's a good blend. I really
Well,
like
and
it.
and not only that, but in WWE, I think one of the biggest problems with Money in the Bank is that cashing in on a prone opponent is the smart thing to do. But on that same note, it's also a very heelish thing to do. I can't
Right.
tell you the last time we had a non anticipated, I guess you could say, a match, a Money in the Bank cash in that was spontaneous, that wasn't leading up to the person winning the title and then going on a heel run. Because you
Right.
look at, I mean, even with Rollins, you said you loved it, but then he went on as a heel champion. You could even argue Dolph Ziggler, when he cashed in on Del Rio, he was a heel at the time, and then the match with Del Rio, where Del Rio was focusing on the head and he won with a super kick and that kind of stuff, that was considered a double turn because Ziggler was technically, at least in WWE's eyes, the heel going into that match.
Right. Exactly.
And then most recently, of course, we have Sheamus. Of course, he's a heel. Daniel Bryan was a babyface for the longest time, but then he won the title and everyone loved it. But winning the title got to his head, and he did the over celebration stuff, and he was a heel then.
Right.
So I feel like at least every recent example of somebody cashing in that spontaneous manner is a direct kind of giveaway that that person is going to be a heel champion. Whereas with
Right.
this, you could have Phoenix say, "Hey, Cueto, I'm cashing in. I want my title match next week," and there's nothing heelish about that. That's just him using something that he's earned to cut to the front of the number one contendership line.
And I think that's a great point that you make there, because with something like this, with a device like this, you can maintain somebody's Technico or Rudo status pretty effortlessly, So I really do appreciate that. I'm really glad you brought that up, dude.
And that's another thing too, is a lot of the time it feels like guys that have money in the bank didn't necessarily earn it, because you win money in the bank by climbing a ladder, which isn't really a sign of how good of a wrestler you are, just how good you are at taking advantage of opportunities. Whereas Gift of the Gods, you have to win a minimum of 2 matches and beat a minimum of 7 other people in order to get that, because the first match is at least going to be a one-on-one match to get the medallion, and then the second match is going to be a 7-way match to unite the medallions.
Exactly.
So I love Lucha Underground's system for the Gift of the Gods Championship, but now that we've gotten past all of that, I think we need to talk about Fenix's season 2. And to start off immediately, I have him cashing in within the first 4 weeks of season 2.
And I believe we have touched on this. Ashton, what's so fascinating about Phoenix's season 2, at least from where you and I sit, because, a million different fans are going to have a million different perspectives, but I don't think you or I, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, see this cash-in of Phoenix being successful, if I'm not mistaken, because we both
Correct.
see Mil being the champion, certainly at Ultima Lucha,
Right.
because we've been saying, Mil and Matanza. So that's definitely a very interesting point, considering that we don't see him being successful. I do see him, obviously, he's going to be defending the Gift of the Gods against King Cuerno, so I'm sure that fits into your first, 4-week time frame, because we saw King Cuerno in pursuit of Phoenix at the end of Ultima Lucha Part 2.
I think the
So,
way that I would do it just personally, and again, this is pure fantasy booking. I'm not trying to say that I actually want Lucha Underground to do this, although I wouldn't complain if they did. I think Cuerno would issue the challenge in episode 1. The match would happen in episode 2. And then either in episode 2 or 3, Phoenix would be like, okay, I am lucky to have gotten out of that match still holding this. I can't hold on to it for that much longer because all it does is put a target on my back. Time to give the target back and use this for what it was meant to be used for. And he cashes in right there, and we get the title match either in episode 3 or 4. Probably in 4, because Phoenix would probably want to give himself a week of time to rest up after the Cuerno match before challenging Mil.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think the biggest debate I had with Phoenix actually was the point of cash in. Like,
Right.
how many challengers do we have step up? Because I was even thinking, if we're going to have Phoenix cash in with how dominant Mil is, you may want to have, a slight slew of challengers step up to really show that Phoenix is ready for Mil, because again, this is the same Mil Muertes, as we've been saying quite a few times now in this commentary, power bombed you through a building and killed you, dude. So you want to make sure that you're ready.
Right. And I think that's another thing too, is that I've also been relatively narrow minded, just constantly wanting to say, yeah, Phoenix is cashing in the first very beginning of the season. There is also a very good possibility, and I think that, this is kind of more likely to be what actually happens, that Phoenix holds the title for the first half of the season or so, and then, we have different challengers going for both titles. Somebody challenges Mil one week, somebody challenges Phoenix one week. Maybe feuds actually happen. Maybe Phoenix versus King Cuerno lasts a few weeks, maybe a few months even. And those guys just kind of go back and forth exchanging wins. Maybe
Right.
the Gift of the Gods title itself changes hands and it ends up not necessarily being on Phoenix. There's no way to tell for sure. But I'm just kind of saying, to me, the most logical thing for these characters to do. And if I was Phoenix, just from a logic perspective, if I was Phoenix the character, I would not want to have to defend this championship more than once. I wouldn't want to have to defend it once, period. But you would have to imagine that if King Cuerno said to Cueto, hey, I want the Gift of the Gods title, Cueto could have that match set up that night. But if Phoenix goes to Cueto and he's like, hey, I want to cash this in, you have to wait at least a week.
Exactly. And knowing Cueto, dude, not only would he make you wait a week, but he'd say, you'll get your match if ... and then insert the whole
If you
Cuerno
can
match.
survive King Cuerno, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So
And
to
in
me,
that case, then you've got, oh, well, now I've got to put it with King Cuerno tonight. Let me hold on to this, even if I do beat him, because I don't want to cash in now, because then it would be 2 weeks in a row with brutal matches where I would have to put my body through hell.
And see, this is where Lucha Underground is so brilliant, though, Ashton, because everything that you and I are talking about, it's legitimate. When you look at the Gift of the Gods Championship and the way it's structured, the psychology of the holder would have to be, okay, I've got to get rid of this now because it may not be mine if I keep holding on to this for much longer.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to acknowledge, look at who the champion is. Mil Muertes. So you're torn between, I would really love if there was a quote unquote weaker champion. By that, I mean a champion that I feel like I'd have a better chance of beating.
But it is
Get
Fenix who's the only person that we remember, at least, that beat Mill in season 1. And if not, if he's not the only one to beat him, we know for a fact he's the only one to beat him twice.
yeah, beat Mil Muertes version 1. Like,
Well, Fenix doesn't necessarily know that. All Fenix knows is that it's Mil Muertes, and that now all of a sudden he doesn't have irises.
I'm telling you, if I'm Phoenix, I'm not saying that Phoenix can't beat Mil Muertes, because you're right, he does have that track record. But if I'm Phoenix, I'm looking at that Gift of the Gods Championship, I'm looking at Mil Muertes, I'm getting PTSD about being powerbombed through a building, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I could just hold on to this for a little bit longer. And then when I see that Mil isn't dropping the title, I just kind of kick and sigh and just cash it in and hope for the best. But
yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things to me where there are a few different kind of mindsets that a Gift of the Gods champion. And again, this is purely just looking at the character. This is us doing a little miniature character study here. The first mindset is, this title puts a target on my back. I don't want that to happen. I want to be able to be the hunter rather than the hunted. So let me get rid of this title. And then if I want to pick a fight with somebody, I can do that rather than having all these people picking fights with me.
right.
The other side of that coin is, I like people picking fights with me because I like fighting. That might be what Phoenix does. Phoenix might just be like, I like having this target on my back because I like being able to constantly have this endless stream of opponents for me to beat up on.
Right.
And then another thing is, like you said, well, I don't really like constantly having people come after me, but I would rather deal with challengers than deal with Mil freaking Muertes right now. So maybe somebody can, I guess, sort of catch Mil, maybe, and maybe like we get like a hiccup victory, and then I'll cash in on the new champion. But then, of course, there's also a counter to that logic saying, well, yeah, but even if somebody catches Mil and then you cash in and win the title, Mil's still going to be coming after you.
Exactly. I think it creates, Ashton, especially when you articulate it that way, such a great arena of just possibility.
You know what?
And just a lot of intrigue.
Maybe Phoenix's season 2 story arc is that he's just going to go insane.
Maybe. God,
Maybe
that would be
because like that's the thing. Like if you look at Money in the Bank, it's one of those things where there are no consequences to holding it. You just hold it. It's it's Money in the Bank. You're the Money in the Bank guy. There have only ever been, I think, 2, maybe 3 instances where somebody's had to put the Money in the Bank briefcase on the line, and that's not something that's expected unless it's like hardcore, like everyone's against you kind of thing,
Yeah, well, I mean, they've only ever really done that when you think about it, when there was some kind of program where the animosity seemed to warrant it, like Edge and Matt Hardy when they did it, or not even in the case of animosity, when you Ziggler Cena, or when you look at not even always animosity, when Ken Anderson had it, because he was the only guy that had to defend it and lost it because he was injured, and Edge, picked the bones.
Well, no, I don't think he was injured. I think he got suspended.
Was it the suspension? Because I know it was always a mixed bag with him of one or the other.
I mean, you would imagine if he was injured, he wouldn't have been able to defend it in the first place.
Yeah, I had heard that he was dealing with an injury, and that's how they wanted to write him off television, but a suspension is probably more likely. But regardless, he did lose it.
Right.
And, just this whole idea of Gift of the Gods, of just being like, that whole, I'd love to cash it in, but this guy is the champion, but if I don't, do it, all these guys are going to keep coming after me. I think it's just a great study to see how somebody handles that pressure, and just the whole motivation, the psychology of the holder, season by season. And I think Phoenix is a great way to start. I mean, dude, let's just be honest here. It's Lucha Underground. There is no reason to believe, and I'm saying this to both Phoenix fans and people that just feel very traditional, there is no reason to believe he is even going to hold on to this thing, in my view. Because Lucha Underground has always thrown the book out. Always. So who's to say that he doesn't defend it against somebody, not even King Cuerno, and maybe he drops it, and maybe he has to get it back.
I could see him losing it to someone like the Mac, honestly.
Yeah, some kind of upset, right?
I
I mean,
think
I
the
don't.
Mac is the perfect like if he's not going to lose it to Cuerno, which is another one that I could potentially see. I think the Mac is a perfect kind of underdog baby face to get that like almost like that the Daniel Bryan versus the Big Show, or like the Hurricane versus the Rock, or like the Shelton Benjamin versus was it Ric Flair?
Triple H, I think
Triple
you're thinking
H,
of.
yeah, thank you. That kind of match where it's like he goes in and he freaking wins it, but then we get like a dusty finish, or maybe he actually wins it, but then Mill gets it back on his first defense, something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
the
a
last
big
thing.
crazy underdog upset that makes the crowd just go insane.
Right. And just to be clear, and I know neither one of us is saying this, but like, I wouldn't want to see there be like this huge free for all where they give to the guys where it seemed to be constantly changing hands. But I would expect some title changes, maybe even in this season. I mean, again,
Right.
Lucha Underground's been anything but textbook. So, even us talking about Phoenix cashing it, I think is being generous to Phoenix. Not that the guy isn't good, but just
Right.
because, I mean, if they're willing to have the man powerbomb through a building, I don't
Well,
know if there's any struggle they wouldn't impose upon him.
right.
Uh,
Again, though, my logic comes back to if I were Phoenix, what would I want to do? That, like, I'm
Right.
trying to get inside the character and figure out what their motivation is. And to me, if you're Phoenix, you want first of all, you've got unfinished business with Mill. He put you through a freaking building. You want to get your hands on him. Second of all, you'd really like to also win the title if that's a possibility. To me, even if the title wasn't involved, if Phoenix had a one free match with Mil Muertes card, he would cash it in as soon as possible because he wants revenge.
And I do think you're absolutely right. And yeah, but to take it to another gear. So we've decided like cashing, and we both agree he'll be unsuccessful. To me, I could see him doing well in Aztec Warfare this year. I don't think I had him winning it. I think I said
I
Son of
don't
Havoc I
think
would have.
I think that he's going to play a much lower kind of role in Aztec Warfare because really in season one he was one of the most featured people because he won one of the two 10-man matches and he was the first entrant into Aztec Warfare. He was the first person to ever enter an Aztec Warfare ever. So that's huge for him. But I feel like his role in that match is going to be much more underscored this season.
Yeah, and where I ultimately struggle when we talk about his season two is the point where we all come back to for all of these his
Ultima
Ultima
Lucha.
Lucha,
Yeah.
which is confounding in a way because I just said in the opening what a huge asset I think he is to this company and what a great luchador he is. And I stand by all that. But we've put all these other pieces in play because it's been many episodes, since we've gotten to Phoenix here today. And I'm just wondering, like, where he fits because you already know, Ash, and I think we even kind of revealed on a prior video what my plans are for Pentagon. And if it
Right.
weren't for those plans, I would love to put those two together because I
Right.
think Pentagon's at a point with his character and Phoenix is just so good they could tear the house
Oh,
down.
yeah, dude, like that's my thing with Pentagon. When we finally get to him, I think Pentagon is one of those guys where I just want to see him go against everybody. Like
You and me both, yeah.
I want Pentagon versus faces and heels too. Like I want Pentagon versus Cuerno versus Phoenix versus Drago versus Mundo versus Aerostar versus freaking the Mac versus Cage. I want Pentagon versus everyone. Pentagon versus the world, season 2. Please.
And it's funny, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Don't get me wrong, I'm still glad the piece of crap is gone. But if Alberto El Patron was still around, honestly, I probably would have done a Rudo Patron versus Phoenix for Ultima Lucha just to kind of fill that gap. But
Right.
he's not around, so I'm really stuck. Um, dude, I don't know. This is hard because I don't want to reuse somebody else that I
Maybe,
know I've
you
already
know
used in
what?
a
I
prior
just had a
matchup.
thought. Here's my
Uh,
thing. We have
Okay.
already talked quite a bit about Phoenix, Drago, and Aerostar teaming up at some point throughout the season to go after the trios titles, right?
Right.
Maybe that's an interesting little triple threat that we can set up for Ultima Lucha where they have an implosion in their team.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And you know what? Like, I don't know. Would we want to put a little bit of a stake on it? Because I know like wrestling for wrestling's sake, not often is really appealing. Would we want to make it like a contendership matchup
Well,
or something like that?
whoever gets pinned has to leave the temple.
Okay, whoever gets pinned has to leave the temple. That's perfect. Yeah, we could do that. That sounds great. I mean, Drago's already been there
This
once.
temple
Yeah.
ain't big enough for the three of us.
I was thinking either that, or if you didn't want to go down that route again, because Drago's already had to leave the temple once, maybe you could do the person who wins gets the first crack at the gift of the gods champion. Like you'll have to defend it against whoever wins this triple threat, so they know they're not
Yeah,
going to
they could even do that almost like a friendly thing where it's like, we could have like a match between these guys where they're just like, all right, guys, whoever wins this gets the first crack at the gift of the gods, and the other two guys have to back off.
Yeah, they're perfect. Perfect. Yeah, you know
Or
what?
or because it is Dario Cueto, it could be a match where the loser gets unmasked.
Yeah. Yeah, that could definitely work. I could see that.
That's my thing, is that with Lucha Underground, with how great their writers are, there are so many different avenues that they could use to make a match of this caliber more interesting and have more stakes. Because I would even toss Bengala in there potentially and make it a fatal four way, maybe even a fatal four way elimination match where the last man standing gets one of Cueto's unique opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, I love that idea because it features more like undercard guys that are phenomenal in ring, and it kind of gives them
And you kind of have like a
rivalry
little bit of
elevate
a theme
factor.
to it too. Because
Exactly.
like you've
Yeah,
got the dragon, the phoenix, the spaceship, and the Bengal cat.
exactly. All the greatest oddities under one roof. Yeah, dude, I'm gonna have to tell you, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I co-sign onto that readily because I can't think of anything better to do with Phoenix. So yeah, I think that's a good spot for him.
All right, well, I've deflected enough. I think a lot of people made this call, and I said that we're going to talk about him later, trying to imply at least that it wouldn't be immediately following this one. But most of you guys already called it. Our next episode of the Luchador Spotlight series, we are going to be covering Pentagon Jr. and Vampiro.
So excited for this one, guys. Saturday is gonna own.
And that's exactly when it's going to be. It is going to be on Saturday. But also on Saturday, be on the lookout for our WWE TLC preview and predictions, aka Ashton Hates the World.
It's gonna be wonderful.
If you guys thought that I was pissed off for Survivor Series, just wait.
Da 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 da. Seamus. Sorry, I had to.
Da, 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 da. I hate this company.
The enthusiasm, though. All right.
Hey guys, who are you cheering for to win the Divas title? I'll tell you who. No one, because they're all insufferable bitches.
No one, because none of them are named Sasha Banks. Seriously, how
Too.
long are you gonna hold that
Too.
woman back?
That's a big one. Yeah. Well, I think we've said enough about WWE for now because this is about Lucha Underground. This is about the company that gets it right, John.
Absolutely. And guys, I saw on their Facebook January 27th is the official date, so get ready. Get ready.
It's so far away still.
I know, right? Like my pain.
That's like
But
a full 6 weeks away from yesterday.
I know. It's just heinous, actually, that we have to wait
Actually,
that long.
I'm wrong. It's 7 weeks away from yesterday. I hate
It,
my life. Somebody kill me.
it's too long, damn it. But yeah, once it comes back, guys, we'll be able to revel in all the Pentagon, the Puma, the
Just
Mundo.
think, guys, it'll be coming clean off of the toes of the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that's right. Oh
The
my
Rumble,
god.
the Rumble in 20, and this has to be intentional, which I love. But the Rumble in 2016 is on Sunday the 24th, and then the post Rumble Raw is the 25th, and then Lucha Underground is like, oh, you love the Royal Rumble, right? Because if you didn't, you should come check us out.
And believe me,
Guys,
we
are
will.
you super excited for John Cena to come back and win the Rumble in 2016? Because I know I am not.
Because him versus Roman Reigns WrestleMania 32, that is how you pack that stadium in Houston.
Or better, or worse, depending on how you look at it, Brock Lesnar wins the Rumble, and then we get Reigns Lesnar too.
Oh my god. I'm so ecstatic I can barely feel my face.
Frankly, John, I'm shocked that neither one of us has passed out from the sheer anticipation of it.
I know, right?
Come to think of it, I am feeling a bit lightheaded. We should probably end this. I
Definitely.
can't tell if the lightheadedness is from the faux anticipation or just the fact that I've been wearing a fake smile for the last 6 minutes.
Yeah, my face is actually starting to hurt. So, guys, yeah, I love discussing Fenix. Wanted to tell you all the official date that I saw on their Facebook. Cannot wait. I'm sure Fenix is going to kill it. He'll rise from the ashes and burn brighter than ever before, like he always does.
Just think,
And this
guys,
is
only
awesome.
41 more days.
It's still too long.
No,
Oh, wait.
I miscalculate. 48 more days.
Oh, God, why'd you have to make it worse?
Ah,
God.
I hate myself.
All right, Asher, you can close this out, bud.
I thought we already closed this out.
Fair enough.
All right, guys, we'll see you all for our discussion on Pentagon, which will inevitably remove the blade from my right hand and take it further away from my left wrist. And then, of course, TLC preview and predictions, which will put it right back.